Shalom, shalom, my brothers and sisters. If you are one who seeks life, who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, whom I believe without a doubt his name is Yahuah. My name is Symmanayah, and if you fit that description, I consider you my brothers and my sisters. I say to you, welcome. This is the 25th installment of Return to the Promised Land Judgment Series, the 25th installment. The focus is on tree and vine, tree and vine. The day will come when we will understand why specific instructions were given to us. The days will come when we will witness an increase in discerning the life of the Spirit of Yahuah sent in Yahusha's name, so that we will be equipped to do what is necessary, what is required of us. We will recognize him working through us, one towards another, and know what it means to subject ourselves to one another as his Spirit guides whomever he chooses to direct us at that given time. Recently, I've posted a few videos speaking on things we've taken for granted. My most recent one before this was Abraham's seed, which I encourage you to consider listening to. If and only if you are compelled by the Spirit of Yahusha. I now submit to you, O Yasharal, set apart awakening nation, a message on tree and vine. Allow me to direct your attention to the following passage, John 4:13 and 14. Yahusha answered and said to her, everyone drinking of this water shall thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water I give him shall certainly never thirst, and the water that I give him shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. My brothers and sisters, whether we realize it or not, what Yahusha gives us is the living word, representation of Yahuwah's word manifest in the flesh, representative of Yahuwah's word, living word, as Yahuah, the Almighty Father, sent his set-apart Spirit in Yahusha's name. There is no Trinity. It is the process in which the Most High has chosen to execute his plan, and these are the labels that lets us know where we are in that process. In other words, we must acknowledge that Yahusha is Mashiach. We must acknowledge that the Yahuah sent his set-apart Spirit in Yahusha's name. By saying that, we go from Yahusha bringing life, being renewed by Yahusha's Spirit. All this made possible because he that is the Almighty One, Yahuah, chose to use these labels to represent himself. In due season, we will get to understand that. My brothers and sisters, with that said, you may say, what does this have to do with tree and vine? I'm saying to you, my brothers and sisters, that the words that Yahusha said, you will never thirst, and they are endless, that we will, and many of us have already experienced reading the passage of scripture, getting one thing that applies to our life today, getting the literal, and then getting something spiritual, and reading it again, and maybe getting something different altogether. But when we get the living fountain of the words from the Almighty Father as described in scriptures, they will join hand, they will complement one another, they will connect. They will not battle. So I'm not talking about getting different interpretations that battle. I'm talking about interpretations that come and they reinforce, they make alive the text. I ask you, my brothers and sisters, could Yahushua Mashiach be informing us that his words are endless as we read John 4:13 and 14? I believe so. And with that said, come with me, my brothers and sisters. Let me present something regarding tree and vine. I will share various passages of scriptures and request that you seek to discern whether there is a natural message as well as something spiritual to learn. Allow me to present Ephesians 5:25 through 27. Husband, love your wives as Mashiach also did love the assembly and gave himself for it, in order to set it apart and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. So you see, my brothers and sisters, washing of water by the word. We see where the word of the Almighty Father is also symbolic, used in connection with water. Living water, I say to you, my brothers and sisters. It is my position of belief that the passage represents many other things for us to learn, that this passage is letting us know how the word of the Almighty Father, and keep in mind, He is indeed alive and present among us. Come on, Yasharal, let's examine and see, what does this have to do with tree and vine? Are you aware of the following? Just want to reinforce, when I start talking about natural and spiritual, it is important to understand that our spirit dwells within these earthen vessels, and we have an obligation to manage these earthen vessels. We have an obligation to know. In order to do so, we grow strong. We pray. We yield to the guidance, to the discipline from the Spirit of our Almighty Father. Ephesians 5:18-21 says, do not be drunk with wine, in which is loose behavior, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to each other in psalms and songs and praise and spiritual songs, singing and striking the strings in your heart to the Master, giving thanks always for all to the Almighty Father, Yahuah, in the name of our Master, Yahusha Messiah, subjecting yourselves to each other in the fear of the Almighty One. That subjecting yourselves, my brothers and sisters, is saying that the Most High will use each of us as he see fit, when he see fit. And whomever he chooses to speak to or use, then we yield to that person. Or when he's using us and we speak, they will yield to us. Not to us as in the person before them, but to us as the vessel in which the Most High has chosen to bring something forward. There's much to learn regarding how the Spirit of Yahusha works in us one towards another. And we will learn that in the coming days, my brothers and sisters. When we grow to discern more and more, we will see some of the things that we've taken for granted were tools before us, were things before us that was simple, that if we would have looked and not neglected them, they would contribute to our strengthening, such as the tree and the vine. You see, my brothers and sisters, we see trees all the time. Well, some of us, depends on where you live. We see vines often. Again, some of us, depend on where you live. And if we have not seen it, we've seen something that the tree produced, such as the fruit or the vegetables. Allow me to share some more with you, my brothers and sisters. Genesis 1:11-12 said, and the Almighty One said, let the earth bring forth grass, plant that yields seeds, the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it came to be, and the earth brought forth grass, the plant that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And the Almighty One saw that it was good. We see that the Most High created the tree. Something simple, but yet something that we can learn a lot from if we pay attention. Come with me to John 15th chapter. I invite you to read verses 1-9, but for the sake of time, I will read verses 1-4. John 15th chapter. Here, John, or Yochanan, quotes the Messiah, the Mashiach Yahusha, as saying, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, so that it bears more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Stay in me, and I stay in you, as the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself unless it stays in the vine, and see, neither you stays in the vine, so neither you unless you stay in me. You see, there's a dependency. The Most High wants us to depend on him, to lean on him, to learn of him. And this is through Yahushua Mashiach. My brothers and sisters, you notice how he said, every branch in me that bears no fruit, he takes away. Have we ever given thought to, even though a natural tree, when it's pruned, if it's a dead branch, it's pruned so a fresh branch can grow in its place. Have we ever thought about, while we're in these camps, if we find situations where someone is not fruitful, that he removed that person, or he removed us from that compromising camp? Why? Because by removing the dead branch, it allows the living branch to work through us and produce more fruit. You see, compromising camps, compromising fellowships stand in the way of production, of maturity within a vine, to produce more fruit. Pray on these words, my brothers and sisters. There's a reason the Most High prunes. There's a reason why he trims. There's a reason why, because the scriptures tell us that we are to be fruitful and multiply. Many think that's only in propagating in terms of having children, but it also means fruitful in our demonstration of set apartness, truthful, and spreading the good news of Yahushua Mashiach. My brothers and sisters, there's much to learn from the props that we see, the things that contribute to our physical life. There's much to learn that can contribute to our spiritual life as it relates to a tree or a vine. Take an exercise, make a mental note. What comes to mind when you think of a tree, any tree, specifically a fruit tree? What comes to your mind immediately? You see, the speed of thought is fast. Something came to your mind right away. Maybe just a tree. Maybe a tree you once played on. Maybe a tree whose fruit you've consumed. Maybe just a tree. It's just a plant. But I say to you, my brothers and sisters, now from that mental thought, ask yourself, did you think at all about the origin of the tree? Where it was planted? Did you give thought to the seed, the roots, the leaves, the trunk, the branches? How important they are to the tree in bringing forth the food that we need, or bringing forth the wood that we need, or bringing forth shade? Did you think about what it took for the seed of that tree to be planted and nurtured to bring about a full, mature tree? Did you think about the fruit? A specific fruit you like, maybe a fruit you didn't like. Did you give thought to how to preserve that tree? How to get the full use out of that tree without just consuming it and nothing's left? You see, sometimes we have seen where man have cut down trees, so many trees, so much so that the air quality in the area is bad. So much so there isn't a tree in sight for shade. So much so not realizing that trees, believe it or not, absorb the CO2 out of the air. They help keeps the air fresh. Now I ask you, did you think about any of these things when I talked about a tree or a vine? Because the same could be said about a vine in many ways. I believe the tree is almost symbolic of Yahusha bringing us into unity and we standing tall. I think tree is also from an individual when they are stable and they stand firm, as the scripture talks about being planted, a tree being planted by the rivers of water. The tree is so much we can learn from the tree and the vine, my brothers and sisters. Take the task or a challenge. Ask anyone, 2 or more. The more the merrier. What comes to mind when you think of a tree or a vine? And see if anyone speaks on the dynamics of these plants. I believe different people reflect differently regarding a tree. But if we all neglected the value of a tree, naturally speaking, how many trees would be left over time? We see that where there's over deforestation going on around the world. This also contributes to climate change. But I want you to take the challenge and ask different ones and see. And just as you get different responses from individuals, this is as Yasharal. We have different perspectives. Some perspectives complement one another. Some things we consider more important than others, but they are necessary for the body. The hand has its necessities. The elbow have its necessities. The brain, our head, our neck, our knees, our feet, our fingers, our kidneys. Different parts of the body have different perspectives, different needs. So it is with Yasharal. But each are required to function, or otherwise there's a disruption. Not only with our own individual bodies, but within the body of Yasharal. Let me read these following passages, my brothers and sisters. Proverbs 11:30 says, the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who is winning lives is wise. That was Proverbs 11:30. Proverbs 15:4 says, a healing tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it crushes the spirit. Psalms 1:1-4 reads, blessed is the man who shall not walk in the counsel of the wrong, shall not stand in the path of the sinners, and shall not sit in the seat of scoffers. But it's the light is in the Torah of Yahuah, and he meditates in his Torah day and night. For he shall be as a tree planted by the rivers of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither, and whatever he does prospers. The wrong are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind blows away. Notice it says, he shall be as a tree planted by the rivers of water. That rivers of water, I bring back to your attention, my brothers and sisters, how the rivers of water, that endless water, is the word of the Almighty Father, who is aware that Deuteronomy 8:3 speaks that we do not live by bread alone, but by the words from the Almighty Father. His words are life. His words are like rivers of water. And if we are able to discern and receive the life in all that is presented in set apartness, we will be individually as a tree planted by the rivers of water, and collectively as a tree, a body of one. Now, I ask you, my brothers and sisters, with all the different reflections one would get when you talk about a tree or a vine, do you think it is necessary to listen? Do you think that it's important for us to know and not neglect any function of the tree or the vine? And do you think if we are able to gather together our heads and bring up all that is necessary to recognize the value in the natural tree and vine, that we too may discover some spiritual things that are necessary? We may come away from just lifting up these shepherds, pastors, and bishops, thinking that these are the only important positions in Yasharal. We may very well begin to learn that everybody is important. You are important. You are vital to the tree of Yasharal, to the body of Yasharal, to set apartness. Have you ever given thought that there are many people within the body that are being neglected? Their strengths, their awareness, their duties, their actions contribute to the strengthening of the body of Yasharal. So, could a tree represent Yasharal together in unity? What about a vine? Could a vine represent Yasharal being scattered, but yet still connected as one family? You know, vines will crawl up a wall, a tree. They'll go across the ground. They'll spread out. A vine can be scattered, but yet connected to live. I say to you, does not that ring a bell? Could that not also be representative of Yasharal? We've been scattered across the four corners of the earth, but through the power and might of the Almighty Father Yahuah, in the name of Yahusha Mashiach, we are connected. My brothers and sisters, there are those who would rather spend time going from one language to another, only to bring you back to the language they started. There are those who would have you think that they're taking you back to the pure language, when indeed they're not. There are those who would think that it's more important to consider wearing Hebrew garbs, and what are we wearing? What do we physically look like? How do we physically dress? There are those who prefer to pursue vanity or mislead people to think that they're more spiritual because of the Hebrew garments they wear or the Hebrew language that they profess to speak, when oftentimes it's modern Hebrew. In most cases, I see among an awakening nation those who propel themselves or promote themselves as Hebrew, speaking Hebrew, and only know a little bit. If you wanted directions in times of emergency, when end times come, if you wanted instructions, do you think one who is trying to convince you that they know Hebrew would be the person that will give you something that's most fruitful to your needs during end times as it relates to set apart instructions and guidance? Sure, it's okay to be mindful of historical languages and stuff. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying when it comes to this Hebrew language, Hebrew garbs, my brothers and sisters. Let our priorities be where they should be. And let us know when to step into the function. For it is the function of man, women, and child. It is the function to walk in set apartness. So ask them, can we still function in set apartness if we're not very fluent in the Hebrew language? And if the answer is no, something is wrong, my brothers and sisters. Again, time is of the essence. In the coming days, we will see what takes priority, what things we must learn. When you look at the function, when you look at the definition of a term, whether it's English or Hebrew, get to the seed of the matter and look at its function. Now, sure enough, we are aware that man have tampered with the scriptures, and in doing so, they have replaced some words that will not take you there. So the thing is not so much run to the Hebrew or perceive Hebrew, because modern Hebrew is Aramaic. The thing is to seek out the function, the life in the scriptures. And this is where the corrections come, my brothers and sisters. I submit to you, a tree, every part of the tree must function in unison, in unity, in order for the tree to be complete, in order for the vine to be complete. There are those who spend time learning various things and disregard the props, the examples, the natural things we have that can teach us and strengthen us in spiritual awareness towards the Almighty Father. So what do you choose? To pursue a language? Chasing after different languages? To pursue the best garbs, the best looking garbs? To spend time debating someone whether it should be fringes or tassels? Or would you choose to begin to discern the life in the scriptures regarding the importance of how a seed produces a tree, and that by nurturing it, that tree, that seed, that tree, that fruit will come, and that this also can apply spiritually? The same can be said about a vine. What would you do, my brothers and sisters? Pursue wisdom in the life in the scriptures, or fall into a tangent of chasing things that become a distraction? How we spend our time will prove to be critical in the coming days, O Yasharal. Consider Colossians 4:5, which reads, walk in wisdom toward those who are outside, redeeming the time. I ask you, my brothers and sisters, are we walking in wisdom? Are we managing our time wisely? Are we spending more time in compromising camps? Are we trying to do something that looks good because the person we see doing it looks good and has drawn a crowd, so we want to be amongst the masses, the crowd? Or are we pursuing the living orders of the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name? End times will prove that priority is something that will be top of mind. How to establish priorities will become a thing that is most critical. Yasharal, O Yasharal, believe it or not, I can say much about a tree or a vine. As I find my eyes being opened daily, I can see how they relate to set apart growth. There are those who know more than I, and there are those who take a different posture regarding how a tree and a vine are used in the scriptures to teach us things that are important. But I say to you, my brothers and sisters, let us not neglect what the Most High have brought before us. I'm compelled to believe that there are things that most would consider to be simple, that are packed with things that are important for our growth and set apartness, that are a necessity for the growing of Yasharal. How many times are coming, my brothers and sisters, and we will find that some of us, it will stop us in our tracks. We will fall to our knees and cry out, Abba, Father, Yahuah, in the name of Yahusha. We will seek his living guidance, his direction. We will soon learn, my brothers and sisters, the things that we have been taking for granted that are important in our set apart instruction will rise to the top. We will discover, in spite of those who we desire to be with us, that many may not. We will discover those who are drawn by Abba Yahuah, as the scriptures has mentioned. Drawn by Abba Yahuah to Yahusha Mashiach. And we will find that there will be people in our family, people that we desire to remain with, will not be apart. We will decide things that we must choose as it relates to the coming of a set apart people. There will be division in families, my brothers and sisters. Are we not aware of Matthew's 10th chapter, verses 34 to 39, where the Most High talks about bringing a sword, his word, and that it will bring division? He said, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. In other words, that sword is to identify the set apart ones versus those who are wicked. Believe it or not, my brothers and sisters, as end times ramp up, our focus will be on one another, on set apart children. Our focus will be on discovering other parts of the tree, the vine, other parts of the body of Yasharal, bringing Yasharal into that refined position, that position that will end up with 144,000 Hebrews, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Yasharal, and a great multitude, together a set apart awakening nation. We will discover the importance, what it takes for that prophecy, what it takes for that end results to come to be. And it will take some division, some separating, some coming away, some purging. Let us be mindful. This plan belongs to the Most High, my brothers and sisters. Remember, we are Abraham's seed, singular. It would be wise to accept that the core matter is that in order to be whole and complete, we must represent ourselves as part of one body, seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father Yahuah. If we think this is purely about race and culture, we are sadly mistaken. We are not to neglect race and culture, but the priority is in set apart obedience. Whether we're Hebrews or Gentiles, it's about set apart obedience. It's about worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father Yahuah. I say to you, O Yasharal, there is much that our inward man must learn and will learn in the coming days. We will come to see that the Most High has equipped us with the tools in the scriptures and the life in his spirit to recognize continuously. So next time you pass by a tree and look at it, next time you see a vine, or next time you open your mouth to eat something that came from a tree or a vine, just think about how this spiritually can apply, that some work went into getting that to you. There's some work in us that is necessary to get the fruit to another brother or sister. There's work that would require sometimes to come away from the branches that are not producing fruit and be amongst the fruit deliverers, my brothers and sisters. It's time to receive all that is necessary, from the simple to the complex. It's time to recognize those who pay attention to various things and how they connect to the body, the tree, the vine of the Almighty Father Yahuah. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, I encourage you to be aware that the promises from the Most High regarding discipline, vengeance, and wrath will become more and more clear in the coming of days. Be encouraged. Continue to seek to discern all that is necessary. In the name of the Almighty Father, Yahuah, who sent his set-apart spirit in Yahusha's name. So in Yahusha's name, I say to you, my brothers and sisters, Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.